Quanell, a horrifying press conference last week from HPD Chief Troy Finner, where he conceded that there are 4,000 sexual assault cases that have been, the investigations have been suspended. And they just said, hey, we're not going to do this. We're not going to try to seek justice for these victims. And I am not a believe all woman guy, right? But I think we should at least give all victims of sexual assault an investigation. In fact, the numbers make it very clear that most women that make outcries, the overwhelming majority, somewhere between, I think, 85 and 95% are legitimate. And in fact, that most rapes, there's not an outcry, most sexual assaults. And of course, men get sexually assaulted as well. And everyone in Houston who has made a claim of sexual assault should have the police department investigating this. Now, Chief Finner is saying it's a manpower issue. Then it comes out that there's about 250,000 cases total that have been uninvestigated, which speaks to my belief about policing in Houston that I've been outspoken about for a very long time. Some of the viewers aren't aware I used to be a policeman, but I also used to sit on the board of the Houston Police Foundation, which raises millions and millions of private funds for HPD. We've got a new mayor, whose candidacy I supported, but he decided to stay the course with HPD, and I am questioning that severely, right? If we have, there's a lot of talk about restorative justice, there's a lot of talk about defunding police. That didn't happen here in Houston. But we do have this effort in big cities across America, including right here in Houston, to, in my opinion, to reduce the expectations of citizens that police will actually come out and respond to active crime. You've heard horrible stories about people watching burglaries on their security cameras and HPD taking hours to come out. I had an incident where there was a domestic disturbance between two people in the street in front of my house. I waited till there was an assault to call, but an hour and a half, 2 hours later.
Where you didn't take your big self outside and help nobody.
Okay, firstly, wasn't my disturbance.
Your big 6'9".
They were both, I believe they were both of the same gender.
What that got to do with it?
And it didn't have anything to do with me.
So
right?
I'm sure one was the woman, and one was the man.
I think they were either both feminine men or masculine women.
One was the pitcher, one was the bat catcher.
Okay,
so you didn't go out there and try to assist nobody.
Look, what I did was I contacted the police, expecting them. When I was an officer, you're responding within 5 minutes, if not quicker. An hour and a half, 2 hours later, someone's knocking on my door, want to know where they are. They know, right? There's a reason HPD drags ass like that. It's because then they can clear the calls unfounded, so it keeps crime statistics down. I think it was the second season of The Wire where the whole conspiracy was the police department misclassifying crime to make crime look like it's going away when it's really getting worse. And that was fiction back then. It is the reality right now.
Well, what they actually did was push crime into one isolated area.
Oh, no, that was a different season. Right, yes.
Where they sanctioned
different
the
city.
behavior.
Well, I don't even, what was the name of the area that they called it? But I mean, great show.
It was in Baltimore.
Right, but it was in Baltimore.
But it was Avon Barksdale people and Marlowe's people fighting for the same territory.
Great show. Not The Sopranos, but right on The Sopranos.
I loved it.
But so what we have here is HPD conceding that they're just not investigating crime, which is what us citizens, I live in the heart of the city.
So you think they're cooking the books?
Right. Well, I mean, so when you call reform, what we are the masquerade of reform now, by not responding, they don't come out for thefts anymore. Well, it looks like thefts aren't out of control because people stop reporting it when they know the cops aren't going to come, or if they do eventually come, they're going to come along after someone's gone and they're not going to do anything. It discourages reporting. We have shoplifting out of control in this city. Shoplifting being out of control leads to robberies being out of control. Robberies being out of control leads to murders being out of control. And what we have is this tidal wave of crime that is either unreported, or if it is reported, it's being under or uninvestigated. And it's horrifying. And this new mayor has to make a change.
But what do we expect Chief Finner to do? HPD Chief Finner is a great man. He's a good man.
He might be a good man, but he's doing a bad job.
He's been very good for the city of Houston.
No, he hasn't.
And he's done
a abandoning
lot
poor
to try
people
to
of color to
turn
crime.
around the crime problem in the city.
He absolutely
but what
hasn't.
concerns me is every law enforcement agency, from the Harris County Sheriff's Department, HPD, local constables in Harris County, they're all saying the same thing. We are severely understaffed. We can't find enough officers to hire. And they've been saying this for years since the major protests erupted across the country. And officers started saying, well, we don't want to do the job anymore because we're not going to be protected. So what if we remove Chief Fenner, Charles, and bring in another chief? If you don't increase the budget for him to hire more officers, he inherits the problem and the problem continues. So why don't we see what happens with this new mayor to try to move city council to increase the budget for HPD so they can hire the officers necessary to investigate these crimes? Charles, there's not even enough homicide detectives in HPD or Harris County Sheriff's Department based on the rate of crime that's taking place in this city. Crime has exploded over the last several years, but yet police hiring has gone down.
I will not.
This was bound to happen.
I will not disagree with you that in the wake of not just the social justice protests after George Floyd, but in the BLM movement and everything, that there are those officers, not all officers, but many officers, who have said, hey, America hates me now, which the treatment of law enforcement over the last decade has been horrifying. And I've been an advocate for systemic change in law enforcement for decades. But it doesn't mean we don't need law enforcement. Defund police was just the stupidest thing in the world. We need to we need to change what we consider a criminal, right? You know, drug users aren't criminals, they're addicts. They need to be treated in hospitals, not prisons. And we need to focus our law enforcement not on revenue generation. I saw this as a presiding municipal judge that many cities, most cities in Texas, balance their budgets.
No doubt.
By writing tickets on the poor, and it's regressive tax.
The
we need to change those two things and focus police solely on victim crime. But instead what we've got is reform is cops just not coming, right?
Well, that's
and
not
Chief
what's happening,
Fenner,
Charles.
That's exactly what's happening.
That's similar to what's happening.
Okay, let's
What
see.
they're saying is this. Here's the narrative, especially among white police officers. They're saying, stop working in these Democratic-led cities. Don't apply for the jobs in law enforcement.
Well, why would you want to work
with
somewhere
Democratic-led
where
cities?
people hate you? I don't think it's white officers, but any officer.
Start going further out in the county outskirt lying areas where police are still appreciated and they're still respected. That's the narrative being pushed across the country.
That's probably true.
So what is happening, I don't know about that one, but holding cops accountable, we all should be about that.
I don't
but
disagree.
I would say this. How can we expect to truly fight crime when the criminals know you don't have enough money to hire enough cops to deal with the criminal
I
problem?
disagree with the budget. Okay, I think HPD's budget is plenty large enough, right? And I think they have plenty of manpower.
That's not what the chief said.
Well, because I think the chief's full of crap, right? I think there has been a concerted effort, especially during the last administration, to make Houston seem safer than it is by under-investigating, unresponding, and not. And I've heard this. I've heard it. You talk about outlying suburban. I have heard this from deputy constables' mouths, right? That if they get dispatched to something that HPD was dispatched first, because people get frustrated, like car accidents or small thefts, they will see an HPD officer sitting blocks away, just waiting for them to show up before they pull up. I have experienced it where I watched a black man get hit by a hit-and-run driver, managed to stop her, and it was a black female. Black officers come out, refuse to do any report, refuse to do anything. Guy calls me, I return because I witnessed it and helped him stop her, and they start fussing at me like I'm the bad guy because they don't want to work, right? And I don't think it's racialized. I think it is they're hearing that many officers, good officers, there are plenty of good officers in the Houston Police Department, tons of them, but they are being pressured by the administration to not work. You know, we used to have a goal of windows down.
That?
Oh, absolutely.
I don't think so, Charles.
I think you're wrong. I think
that
if Troy Fenner was white, you'd have a whole different attitude.
I don't think the administration is pushing for them not to solve crime.
Oh, they're pushing them not to work,
and
not to respond to crime.
With that, because what police chief thinks he can keep his job if crime doesn't go down?
It's about
if he's not solving crimes.
It's about the appearance
and violent
of crime.
crimes are not going down. What police chief can keep his job?
You know what's going down?
I believe the real issue
crime.
is some of what he said. The budget for the Houston Police Department has been cut every year for the last 6 years.
Okay. Again, I think we're spending.
And you always advocate that. You always say that these Democratic-led cities are cutting the police budget to take care of immigrants. To take care of immigrants.
Well, no, that's talking about New York. What New York did as a sanctuary city, they canceled, I think, 5 police academy classes.
Houston's a sanctuary city.
Right. But New York said, we're going to take these 5 academy classes, we're going to cancel them, so we can use that money to give free housing, free money, and free health care to illegal entrants. And I think that's insane. I do think we have to have a budget that is on par with other big cities. I think the defund the police nonsense. I mean, I think as a city, see, here's the thing. Just like, so Rudy Giuliani, who of course has grown old and embarrassed himself with his behavior trying to support Trump, But people forget that the city of New York was controlled by Democrats for decades, right? And it had gotten to the point.
Ed Kochen
It had gotten to the point where, when Dinkins and Koch were mayors, that you couldn't walk around Manhattan. You're thinking you're going to get mugged. I talked to a comedian friend who said if you walked around Tribeca in the 80s after 8 p.m.,
especially Central Park,
you're getting mugged every single time, right? Every single time. And finally, the city got so bad that they elected this white Republican mayor, former federal prosecutor, who swept in there and cleaned up New York, right?
Who was an absolute racist, too.
Well, but he still cleaned.
And he was the godfather of stop and frisk.
But he changed.
He was the godfather of racial profiling.
He took a city that was unsafe for everyone to live in and made it far, far safer.
And he was the godfather of racial profiling.
Now, New York is getting back to the thing. And when we talk about racial profiling, right? So in cities like
stop
New York,
and frisk laws.
In cities like New York and Chicago, where in parts of Los Angeles, parts of Houston, where poor people of color, law-abiding people, are afraid to go out of their house because there's so much crime, it's so endemic, it's terrifying, right? That they're the ones being failed, and they're being failed by people who don't live near them, mostly white liberals, who are advocating for policies while they're hiding behind walls. And black politicians, city council people who don't want police to defund the police, right? They know if they call the police,
and I've never
they're
supported
coming.
that.
They're coming.
I've always been defund corrupt cops, defund bad police officers,
well, we need to,
but not police as a whole. We all want police.
There needs to be
just
oversight.
Good police.
I have been an advocate for cameras for decades, right? And there are still HPD units that don't have dash cams. There are still HPD officers out there without body cams.
Is it because of the budget?
No, in fact, the Houston Police Foundation, I'm sure, would buy all of that.
I don't know about that. I think that's a lie.
It is a lack of mandatory.
The Houston Police Foundation would not buy body cams like that.
Oh, yes,
because they don't want cops getting in trouble.
Well, no, we tried.
They don't want cops getting in trouble.
When I was on the board, we were buying them. They have wanted cameras, right? And I think good officers want cameras,
but
right? Because cameras
but
protect good officers from bad people,
but the
and good people from bad officers.
Did not want body cams.
I get you. I understand. And that's wrong. We don't need to be beholden to any public union.
They fought against body cams.
But we need the oversight, but we also need a robust department. And we don't need to tolerate administrators who are giving detectives and investigators a pass on not doing their damn job.
But Charles,
we need
how can any police
people
chief
to work
or any mayor fix that problem that's existing in HPD right now with all of these hundreds of thousands of cases going uninvestigated?
Because they need to put a foot in people's ass.
Without the correct budget, man.
No. We need to put a foot in people's ass and tell them to work.
That sounds good, Charles.
No,
but if you can't hire the right people to work, if you can't hire enough people to work, how are you going to do it?
Well, I mean,
you got to have the workers to do the work. You can't holler folks about do the work and ain't nobody coming to work.
You hit the nail on the head, right? And when America decided it hated all cops instead of just hating bad cops, people started. Why would anyone want to be a cop in Oakland or San Francisco, which are both war zones? Why would you want to be a cop in Los Angeles? Why would you want to be a cop in New York City? Why would you want to be? I know New York cops that have to hide, cops of color, black, Latino, that have to hide what they do for a living in their neighborhood for fear of being attacked.
I will say this. Since the growth and the advancement of technology with cell phones, I think it should be a crime to curse out a police officer.
I disagree.
Let me finish. And it's not just. I've seen my own people go out to a police scene, officer doing his job, trying to handle the situation.
I've seen it too.
And call him every MF, every B word, every sorry mother effer, say things about his family and all of that. That's wrong. Now, if that's not verbal assault, then what is?
Okay, well,
because you can disagree with that cop and what he's doing and just record. But to cuss him out like he's somebody that's a scumbag and all he's doing is doing his job, that's not what we should come to, Charles.
And let me respond to that. First of all, a part of police training in the academy, you're told that you're going to have to put up with people saying ugly things to you. The free speech clause of the First Amendment protects people's rights to tell the government ugly things, right? Now, if you're interfering, if you're obstructing the investigation, but we see far too many Americans being arrested.
Would you tell black people the same thing?
I would tell everyone.
Would you tell black people the same thing?
What do you mean?
That we should put up with some white person calling us a nigger?
Well, that's different. It's not the government.
No, it's not.
No, hold on.
Because if you got a citizen filming a cop and calling that cop a hoe, a B word, a MF, at what point he's a human being too?
You want me to respond?
At what point do you say that man's a human being too?
Do you want me to respond?
Go ahead.
Okay. So a citizen is the people mistake the concept of free speech. The free speech clause of the First Amendment to our Constitution and the Bill of Rights restricts governmental response to speech. It doesn't restrict private response. If someone were to come up to you and a white person and say some horrible racial pejorative, like the horrible racial pejoratives you directed me all the time on Fox Soul.
When?
Watch our Fox show, so you'll see him call me, what was it, a napkin American?
I don't recall any of that.
A polar bear. I mean, all kind of stuff.
Chalk
but anyhow,
walking man.
chalk walking man. I didn't even get
I don't recall any
right?
of that. But go ahead.
But you can respond with an assault, and although there'd be a crime to assault someone for mere words, it would, I think when getting sentenced or punished, people would take that into account. It's awful. People shouldn't use that.
So we shouldn't protect cops and stuff
when
like that.
No, when cops are working, I'll give you an example.
I understand some of it.
I'll give you the difference.
But some of it I see, Charles,
I'll give you the difference.
downright foul
I'll give you
and
the difference.
disrespectful,
Let me
man.
explain the difference. I'll tell you, years ago, and this involved me and a white woman, so this wasn't racialized, but I'm in Journey's Kids, which is a shoe store in the 90s and 2000s for kids at Baybrook Mall. And I'm there with my two young kids who were probably 6 and 9 years old. And a woman that I had found guilty of a traffic citation, who I immediately forgot, right? When I interacted with people as a police officer, people remember me. It's a big part of their life. Mm-hmm. When I interact with people as a judge, people would remember me. It's a big part of their life.
6'9".
But it's every day for me, so I forget.
6'9".
This woman came up and started screaming at me in front of my kids for finding her guilty, right? She was with her husband. And I looked at her husband, and I said to him, hey, I can't punch her. She's a woman. But if your wife persists to yelling in my face while you sit there and laugh, I'm going to punch you in the damn mouth, right? Because this ain't going on in front of my kids. But I was on my private time, and I wasn't a judge. But if I was sitting on the bench and she went crazy, that would be contempt of court. But it wouldn't be an assault on me.
I don't think you have
if I
that
walked
right.
in the parking lot in my robe, going from the police station, the police station court to the courthouse, and someone yelled ugliness to me, you got to take it.
But I don't think you have that correctly,
But you
Charles.
do have that right.
When she came up hollering to you like that, you're supposed to walk real close to her, look down at her face, look in her face real close, and like a black man, tell her, go sit your words down right now.
Well, first,
she would have left you alone.
I didn't want to get too close.
You white boys too soft.
Too soft. I should have.
You white boys are too soft.
I should have punched the woman.
You white boys too goddamn soft.
Okay.
Should have walked up to her. Come here. Look there now. Stretch your gut.
I would like to
and
point
I guarantee you, she'd have sat down and left you alone.
I'd like to point out that you're making an assumption about all white men.
Yeah, I lost soft as hell.
I mean, like Christian McCaffrey, rushing leader for last year, white as hell.
I'm talking about when it come to dealing with them crazy women of y'all.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe.
See, in the hood, we was always taught that middle knuckle.
I don't even know what that means.
That backhand.
Okay. I'm not supporting. I was
that
raised.
that Fillmore Slim
raised,
backhand.
I will tell you why I have such
that Tony Macaroni backhand.
Why I have such a quick tongue is because I was raised that men didn't hit women, but I was also a latchkey kid with an older sister that liked to hit me, right? So I would just make fun of her until I made her cry and she left me alone, right? And I think that worked much better. I don't think men should hit women. I think sometimes men have a position where they need to restrain a woman.
In self-defense, I think a man has a right to. Only in self-defense.
She was just screaming at me in the mall. And it would have been a crime if I punched her husband.
I didn't say punch her.
But,
I never said punch her.
I know you said something about a mid-knuckle on the back of the hand.
I told you, Tony Macaroni mid-knuckle backhand. The Fillmore Slim.
I absolutely disagree.
You never watched the Mac?
I think
you never watched the Mac?
I did watch the Mac.
All right, then.
I disagree.
You remember Pretty Tony?
I disagree.
You don't understand.
Okay. I don't understand because of it's my Eurocentric viewpoint.
Your Eurocentric misunderstanding of how to handle toxic, crazy white women.
I've got to get to the laundry because it takes a while to starch that stuff and press it, so I've got to go pick up those uniforms. So, hey, thank y'all for watching. If y'all would do me a favor and check us out on Fox Soul where we're crushing it, that you actually get this kind of show, but you get 3 topics, right? 10-minute segments, national television, prime time, Monday through Wednesday. They want us to go 5 days a week. I don't know if we have the time, but check it out. And always catch us at 5:45 on the Monday and Wednesday. They should have us on more. But hey, thank y'all for tuning in. I'll give you the last word, Quanell.
Thank you for tuning in. And to you, touchy-feely, disrespectful plantation mistresses, white guys, put your foot down. Have a backbone.